Hey everybody, and welcome to another video review brought to you by CollectionDX. I'm Sentai Seiya, and today we're finally checking out Pteragordon from the Zyuden Sentai Kyoryuger line. And he is Zyuden Ryu number 6, as you can see on the battery, right there, number 6. And that's fitting because this mecha does belong to the 6th Ranger in the current Super Sentai series, Zyuden Sentai Kyoryuger. So he is number 6 of 10 of the Great Zyuden Ryu, and so he comes with a battery like every other Zyuden Ryu. And so the battery for Pteragordon is pretty much like any other battery in the line. You have this panel that you can see through the window of the battery, and when you press this button right up here, it flips that little panel. And so this is what the battery looks like when it's ready to use in Brave-In mode, and that's in its dormant mode. Now the cool thing about the dormant mode is that if you hold it up to a light, let it store a little light energy, and then you turn off the lights, you get a nice glow-in-the-dark outline of the dinosaur, because the outline of the dinosaur in this form has a glow-in-the-dark material. Now the cool thing about Pteragordon is that it does house its own electronics, so you don't necessarily need Gabtera to get the sounds out of this battery, although you do need Gabtera for one of the sounds, and we'll check that out later. But for now we can actually just insert the battery into Pteragordon. So let's turn them on. There you go, the same chomping sound, that weird chomping sound that Gabtera makes when you turn them on. And then just stick the battery in, lift open the mouth. There you go, the Gaburicho Pteragordon sound effect from the battery. Now it's not the only sound it makes, and again we'll check out some of the other sounds later. So I do want to mention that the reader inside of this mecha is not the same reader as the one that's inside of Gabtera. It's not actually even a battery reader. It's just a button at the top of the mouth, actually at the roof of the chamber I should say, that when you press it, you get that sound effect. So really, this battery, any battery, me sticking my finger in there as you saw, as long as it presses up against the roof of the battery chamber, you know, where these little lightning bolts would press, it'll elicit the sounds of Pteragordon. So not the smart reader that Gabtera has, but no love lost here. I'm kind of a little tired out of that little sound effect thing. It's kind of cool, something maybe kids would enjoy, but not necessarily my thing. I'm not a big fan of sticking the batteries in all the time. My nephew seems to love it, so obviously it's something for the younger audience, not a grown-ass man like me playing with kids' toys. So if you pick up the first release of this mecha, you actually got an extra battery. As you can imagine, since I'm doing this review a little bit later than the original release, I did not get the first release of the mecha, so I didn't get the special D-Boss battery, which is used in the beginning of the show when this mecha is actually evil. So besides the sound effect that you saw for the battery, you can also press the button right here, and you get that Pteranodon sound effect. Now if you hold the button, you get that attack sound effect. So Pteragordon gets his name from the Pteranodon, and Goro Goro, which is an onomatopoeia for the sound of thunder, and also golden. So you combine those three words and you get Pteragordon. From the top, Pteragordon looks really good. The black, the gold, and the blue paint job look awesome, and the mecha looks like a Pteranodon. I'm not a big fan of this little piece at the top, which, if you couldn't tell, houses the head for the mecha. Looks a little odd, but it's a necessary evil, I think, since the battery chamber is right here. They couldn't have done it where the head pops out some way, you know, a little latch opens up or something out of the back of Pteragordon and allows the head to come out, so they had to hide the head of the mecha somehow. So other than that, the top looks really great. Very cool design. I love the paint job, looks good. You have the little lightning bolts on the wings. Very, very cool looking. Now the underside looks kind of cool. You get the golden lightning bolts, and you still got some gold paint app right here, but there is a lot of black. And there is also more function to the underside than form. You have these little attachment points which are going to be used to attach arms later on to the mecha. And you also have this part which attaches to the Kyoryuger. You got the battery compartment and the little screw hole. You have screw holes pretty much all over the place. So the underside, not so great looking as the top, but you're probably going to be looking at this guy this way anyways. So not something you're going to see most of the time. Now the features are a little bit flat on this mecha still. The line is known for having pretty flat features on the dinosaurs. Like the arms and the legs are a little flat. It would have been cool if they maybe came down somehow a little bit more, other than just being fairly flat pieces of the mecha. But all around, this looks like a pretty good Pteranodon figure. Now one thing I forgot to mention about the underside is that you have these little tabs right here, and officially when it's in this form, the Pteragordon form, they should be sticking out to the sides. This makes it a little bit unstable, so it's actually better if you pop these guys down. Becomes like little kickstands almost for the mecha. Pretty cool. On its head, this mecha has a visor, and you can put it down. And this is to display Pteragordon as it appears in the beginning of the show when it's evil or being controlled by an evil person. So there you go, evil and good. Evil, good. Kind of looks a little evil even when it's in good mode. It's got those bloodshot red eyes. So the transformation for this mecha is actually fairly simple, yet pretty satisfying. So let's get to it. First, you detach this part of the mecha, and you lose an arm. This happens pretty easily. You can take all the arms off. And actually, this is the way that it was packaged when you got it. At least that's how I got the mecha. All the pieces were apart. The legs come off too. And this may be something that plays into a later combination. But for now, let's stick the arms back on. So first we're going to take the legs, fold them in like that, pop the feet in, stand that, and then we have to turn this so that we have those connection points at the top. And now we can attach the top part onto this mecha. At the connection, you just snap it into the connection points. Bring the arms down, fold the wings up, bring down the hands, open the crest up, push the neck back in, open up the faceplate, and there you have it, the Pteraiden-Oh. And now this is a Pteraiden-Oh in its good form. You can easily turn it into the evil form you see at the beginning of the show, simply by bringing the visors down. There you have it, evil Pteraiden-Oh. Now in the show, it does appear with a pretty cool cape at the back. Obviously, this being a kid's toy, Bandai doesn't do cool stuff like that. It's not as if this was one of the Bandai collector things. Then we'd get a pretty cool cape, probably something that would even flow, like a three-piece cape, like the ones you see in the St. Cloth myth line. All around, pretty cool mecha. It's got some good colors. You got the black and the gold showing mostly on the front. You have the arms sticking out of the legs, kind of over the crotch area, something that's kind of weird, but it's also a feature that the Kyoryuger has, although it's not as pronounced with that mecha. You know, insert your dirty jokes here. And now that the mecha is in the Pteraiden-Oh form, it's only fitting that we check out one of the other sound effects that the electronics of this toy makes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the electronics of this aren't as smart, they're not as complicated as the ones that Gobtira has. So for the sound effects that we're going to check out from here on in, we have to make sure that the battery is inserted into the mouth. And so this is because the sounds that we heard earlier, the ones for Pteragordon, are the sound effects that the electronics make when you press the button, but when the battery is not inserted. And so there you have it, the sound effect that announces the name of this mecha. So, very cool. The other sound we're going to check out in a little bit when we combine this with the Kyoryuger. Now, I do want to note, before we move on, that the button at the top is very nicely hidden. It's a little raised panel, much like the panel on the other side. So, let's continue looking at the mecha. From the back, you get a lot of black. You do have a little gold from the wings, But other than that, most of the inside of the mecha is composed of the inner parts of the Pteragordon form. So Bandai didn't really go to lengths to actually paint these other than a black. But still, it looks pretty good. Very nice black color. From the sides, mecha looks a little weird. It's got a lot going on. Really not much of a center of focus for the mecha. But if you look at it head on, still a very cool mecha. Slim build, and then the black and the gold make it look very sleek. Very cool mecha. But that's not all this mecha has to offer. If you attach these two guys, you get the Pteraiden-Oh Western, which is a combination only available when this mecha is good, which is why I put the visor back up on both the faces. So there it is, the Western combination. The other mechas act just as arms. Like I mentioned, the electronics inside of this toy are very simple. You just don't get those extra sound effects like you would if you had attached these two guys onto Gabtira to form the Kyoryuger Western. If you take those guys off and attach Ankidon, you get the Pteraiden-Oh Ankidon combination. I wonder where they came up with that name. So one thing I want to note is that this combination does not work as well as the last one, and this is because of the fact that Ankidon, whoop, see, it's a little unstable. Him having that long tail attachment, the tail actually touches the ground, where the right foot actually does not. So it makes it unstable. As you saw, he's already fallen a couple times. So you can alleviate this by folding the hammer up, but that looks weird. Or if you want to display him in this combination, I mean, maybe you love the Pteraiden-Oh Ankidon, you can put the arm up, and the figure is actually pretty stable that way. Even though the side with the Ankidon attachment is heavier than the side that is just the regular arm, but still very stable, very cool. Actually, that surprised me. I did not think that this figure was going to stand very well, with one side being heavier than the other. But that is one of the cool surprises that I got from this toy. But that's not all. Let's add Bumpaki and take off Ankidon and check out that combination real quick. And now we have the Pteraiden-Oh Bumpaki combination. So this time it is stable, as I mentioned. The arm with Ankidon makes the other figure unstable, but another cool combination. You got the flail thing going on. So that's pretty much all there is to this combination. But we're not done yet, because this mecha has a lot in store and a lot of cool things. So let's finish off this review. So as for articulation, you get the usual being able to move the arms up. That's standard fare with the Super Sentai toys. You can move the arm a bit, I guess, that way. But the neat thing about this toy is that we have, ready for it, articulation at the knees. That blew me away. I guess it doesn't take much to blow me away in this line. I mean, I am used to a lot of the super high-end collectible toys that have tons of articulation, but when it comes to Super Sentai, articulation at the knees isn't necessarily one of those things you see very often. I can't really remember the last time that something like this has happened, but it's very, very cool. You can pose your figure. Oh, let's put this back down. Kind of like he's running. Very, very cool. You get that extra play value with actually being able to play with the legs and move them around. Now, you can't move the legs up too much because the hands at the thigh do touch that midsection piece, but it's pretty nice being able to get kind of like a running man pose. I don't know if you can see it. And so besides that articulation at the knee, which is very, very cool, you also have the articulation at the hips. There's ratchet joints at the hips, and you can even make this guy do the splits. Whoop. Though he doesn't stand up very well, obviously, because he's got that big piece at the bottom, but still kind of neat that you can actually do something like this with a Super Sentai toy, at least with one of the DX figures. This is the kind of thing you would expect out of the little candy toys, but not necessarily something in the DX line. So very, very cool that it has all this extra articulation. So it's very cool that this mecha is not just restricted to standing there and looking pretty, you know, being that big brick of plastic that many of the Super Sentai toys end up being. You can actually play around with it quite a bit. Very cool, especially for those that are used to the high-end articulated figures. And so it's very, very cool to have that articulation at the knees and at the hips. And you even have the articulation at the feet. You can move that up and down. So while this is very cool, I really feel that the articulation isn't actually something that was planned, at least not for the sake of having articulation. This moves up and this moves back, and so does this, so that this part of the leg can attach to the back here, and it closes the gap in. So really cool feature, but not something that was planned for the sake of having an articulated figure, but neat nonetheless. And so for its next trick, Pteragordon is going to combine with the Kyoryuger. I've put Pteragordon back in dinosaur form for this, and so let's get to it. First, we're going to remove the helmet off of the Kyoryuger, and this you can put back inside of the tail piece. Snap it in, close that bad boy up, and we're going to use that in a second. Then we're going to stick the tail piece onto the back of this guy. And then simply all you have to do is attach this right here. Oh, there we go. And the arm fell off. Let's put that back on. For some reason it seems like the connection point on this arm on my Kyoryuger has gotten pretty weak. And then we're going to take the head off of this guy, and this becomes the new helmet for the Kyoryuger. That snaps in. There you go. And so that's what the face looks like with the Pteragordon helmet attached on top. And once you have these two together, you can hold the button on the back of Pteragordon and it will tell you the name of the combination. Let me see if I can find it. There you go. There you have it, the Zyuden Kyoryuger. And so you need the battery inside of the compartment in order for the mecha to make the sound. If you don't have the battery in, it's not going to make that jingle for the Kyoryuger or the Pteraiden-Oh Kyoryuger combination. It's just going to give you the sound that we saw earlier when we held the button in without the battery. So there's that part of the combination. So here we have it, the combination from the back. Now earlier I forgot to put down the chamber, and so the battery stuck out a little bit more than it does now. It still looks a little weird as is, with the battery just sticking out. It looks like a neck, like somebody chopped off Pteragordon's head, or took it off, which we actually did to use it for the helmet on the Kyoryuger. And so it looks a little weird, a little macabre looking. So you can take the battery out, makes it look a lot cleaner, cooler, but then like I mentioned earlier, you won't get the sound effects from the mecha because it's no longer recognized that the battery's in, and it can't do the Kyoryuger or the Zyuden Kyoryuger sound effect. The tail part on the bottom is actually a necessity. It's not just there as like, hey, let's find a place for the tail now that we have this extra dinosaur attached to the back of the figure, and I'll show you why. As you can see, the tail forms a tripod with the two legs, and this guy being as heavy and as big as he is, he's got the huge wingspan. He needs that extra support, otherwise the figure falls off. You can't display it without. So the tail looks a little weird on the back, but necessary. So this is one of those cases of more function than form. But this is the beginning of, you know, we're already starting to combine more and more mechs, and these are pretty big toys, so it makes sense to give these figures a little extra support. I also want to mention that the connection points for Pteragordon onto the Kyoryuger make the on-off switch on the Kyoryuger inaccessible. So if you want the electronics on, you have to have them on from the beginning. And I don't right now, just because of the fact that I do have that issue with the Drycara falling off all the time. So it'd be kind of annoying to get that extra sound getting in the way of the review. So if you want to do the extra sound that you get out of Gabtira with his electronics, you have to basically make sure that you go through the transformation process with the other two arm mechas, you know, inserting the batteries, whatnot, the battery swapping, and then making sure that the figure knows that it is in Kyoryuger form. And you have to leave the Kyoryuger on while you are attaching the Pteragordon onto the back of it, and then you can do that. Like I said, I didn't leave mine on, but we can check it out. I'll take off the wing attachments, Pteragordon off the figure, and we can see what its sound effects are. And so now I've put the Kyoryuger through the battery swapping process, and we can check out the sound effects of the battery for Pteragordon. So there you have it, a sound effect that you can't get by inserting the battery into Pteragordon because of the fact that, like I said earlier, the electronics inside of Gobtera are a little fancier. They can read batteries and all that fancy stuff. So that is it for this review of Pteragordon, Zyuden Ryu number 6 of the 10 Great Zyuden Ryu from Zyuden Sentai Kyoryuger. So awesome figure all around. Honestly, this is a breath of fresh air in a line that I thought was pretty stale. After doing the last couple mechas, which are just arm attachments, remolds with different weapons and slightly different faces and whatnot, I was kind of down on the line. And this guy really made me love the line again. He does a lot of the things that Gobtera does, being that he can combine with the auxiliary mechas and create different combinations. He's got his own electronics, though they may not be as cool as the ones on Gobtera, but the whole electronic gimmick hasn't really been my thing for a while with this line. For me, it's been more about play value, and it's got that articulation, which is cool. That's play value for me, somebody that's used to more articulated figures. And so honestly, all around, my favorite figure in the line so far. Very, very cool looking. Just really all around a very solid toy. So this has been Sentai Seiya with CollectionDX.